All right, folks. So hopefully by now you've seen on the screen, this is from 0 to 300x. If you're in the wrong room, you've had plenty of time to leave. But so this is lessons learned from a small team turnaround. And what I'm going to be talking about is the IGDA Foundation. Who's heard of the IGDA Foundation before? Wow, that's better than I was expecting it to be. Okay, so we're a charitable organization, and we started out pretty small, and I came in to take it over in 2014, and we grew by a factor of 300, and that was painful in a lot of ways. And what I'm going to try and talk through is kind of the ways that we went about achieving that, some of the challenges that we faced in that, and then kind of what we're doing in the future, and drawing parallels from kind of our experiences to how that might work in like a more general kind of business sense, and particularly looking at kind of indie development. So for those of you who don't know me, which is I think most of you except Ron, I'm based in San Francisco these days, but my background is in AI. I've got 4 degrees in artificial intelligence. I got finally my PhD came through 3 weeks ago, so pretty stoked about that. I'm finally fucking done with it. My day job is as a data scientist at Zynga. That's what it says on paper. In practice, what I tend to be doing more than anything is kind of prototyping new concepts with like a data lens. Been involved with the IGDA since about 2011. Came through the scholarship program. I'll be talking a lot about the scholarships, what they are and how they work. But from there, became chair of IGDA Scotland. If you can't tell from the accent, that's where I come from originally. Took over as chair of the AI Special Interest Group, and then in 2013 became the first person outside of North America to be elected to the IGDA's board of directors, which is not as impressive as it sounds. And then, as part of that, and the kind of duties and responsibilities of that, in 2014, I was asked to take on the foundation and move over and head up that board. So that's a kind of one-slide summary of who the fuck I am and why you should care. And to be fair, you shouldn't. But our story is kind of what's the compelling part of it. So like I say, we're a charity, we're a 501c3, which you guys probably understand the implications of that a hell of a lot more than I do with your crazy tax code in this country. But we're a charity for game developers by game developers, and that is kind of our hook. We're aligned with the admission of the International Game Developers Association, obviously, because we're kind of a sister organization. But that means that we're trying to advance the careers and enhance the lives of developers. And if that sounds like I'm reading it from a script, well, you can see it on the slide, but also that is like quoted. That's the specific thing. But the way that we do that is kind of focused on 3 core areas. So we're kind of looking at inclusivity in the industry, which we see as a really key area. Obviously, over the last few years, there's been a real focus on this as an industry-wide thing. Memorial scholarships are what started the thing. So the foundation itself was spawned because a guy in the AI community died, and his friends kind of wanted to award a scholarship in his honor. And they had no mechanism to do that. So they kind of said, okay, well, we need a charity. We need to get this thing put together. And that's where the foundation came from. And then we also aim to support developer communities around the world. And I would say that we're probably one of the few organizations that actually has a truly global reach. So this year we've been supporting activities in Australia, in Europe, in Asia, here in America, and that might be it. Yeah, I think that's it. But, you know, we were founded in 2008, and for the first kind of 6 years, we were just doing this one AI scholarship, and then in the years subsequent, it's kind of really just ramped up. And to kind of highlight just how less good things were in 2014, this was our website, and it pains me to look at it, but I kind of forced myself to. So it was a WordPress blog, and it was a single one blog page. So the information on how to donate to us was so far down, and anything that we'd been doing and anything like static content that we wanted to really promote was just falling off the page, and it was just horrendous. And this is kind of like, it didn't matter, right? Because like we were so small. We had like 1.5 thousand maybe in annual donations. We had a few thousand in the bank, but it really, like, it was kind of a nothing organization. And then if you flash forward to today, like, we've been through a whole rebranding exercise. We now support the IGDA Developer Satisfaction Survey. On the left there, that is the Pixels group in Montreal having, I think they were having a picnic, but like, we're supporting groups around the world. And on the right is a whole bunch of students who we helped get to GDC and then give like really kind of an exclusive kind of VIP experience at GDC. So today we're going to be talking about how we get from one to the other. And for the latecomers at the back there, so we'll be kind of covering a whole bunch of stuff that you guys already know. But I do want to call out that a lot of this is kind of due to Molly and Kat at the back there, particularly the rebrand exercise. That is all Kat. And then both of them are running the programs that are featured there in the GDC picture. So, I'm a little bit disappointed that they're rocking in late, but never mind. Okay, so let's talk about how we did it. So, first of all, this is where we get to memes, because I didn't really want to just give you walls of text. Sort of trying to figure out what we do as an organization seemed like a good exercise to begin with. So identifying like what we wanted to do, how we were doing it, where we were trying to get to, like just trying to go from like, hey, we're a charity for game developers by game developers. Okay, what does that actually mean? What are we going to do? What are we trying to do? What are we trying to achieve? And then looking at what else is going on. There's a whole bunch of outfits that are trying to do good things for the game development industry. But trying to be unique within that is kind of significant, right? Because it's going to give you a lot of kind of opportunities for collaboration if you can be unique rather than competitive. So kind of taking that and trying to apply it to other businesses, like consider what products already exist, consider what you actually want to make, consider where your core competencies are going to be, and then find a gap and a niche where you can kind of fit in. So for us, we were really good at, or we are really good, I shouldn't say we were, because it's still ongoing, at these awards for students. That was something that the IGDA itself had done for about 13 years at the time. And it was like, okay, well, this piece is working really well, so the foundation's going to steal it, and then what we're going to do is we're going to try and build on it. And that is something that we were kind of best in class for, and we're even better today. So a lot of this is kind of talking about kind of corporate bullshit around things like marketing positioning and kind of finding a way to be the unique thing in the space. So for example, you try and talk about that in context of development. I would not want to set up a shop in Atlanta right now doing some sort of like MOBA style, maybe, God-themed kind of thing, because you know what, that niche is already taken. Equally, everywhere you go, you're going to look at the local community and say, okay, well, what's going on here? Who's doing good work here? Okay, well, I'm not going to try and compete with those folk, but what I want to do is align myself in a way that we can collaborate. And that's really kind of helpful. So for us, we've got now developing a lot of ties with the AIAS Foundation, which is the Academy of Interactive Science, and I don't know, AIAS, look it up, it's good. But because we're not competing with them, so we can both leverage each other's kind of skills and grow independently but together. Rising tide lifts all ships. So one of the kind of, as you're trying to identify your core competencies and where you can go and what you can do and how you can develop these things, it's really important to keep in mind like who you're talking to. So for us, we know that we're going to be talking to people who we want to help. Okay, that's one. And we're also going to need to talk to people who can help us help them. So that's like donors. But there's kind of different types of donors. There's corporate donors. There's individual donors. We've got our volunteers. We've got our volunteer leads. We've got kind of prospective people. And when you kind of think about that as an audience segmentation, like you're probably already doing this in your business in that the messaging that you're targeting your players with is very different to what you're targeting potential investors with. And it's very different to what you're targeting potential hires with. But kind of really kind of going deep on that and thinking about it in terms of like actually building those out as different messaging strategies and kind of always knowing why you're talking to somebody, what you want from them, what you want them to do for you, what you can do for them, and why you're even engaging with them in the first place. So you always should be tailoring your story to fit what you're trying to achieve. And in that, you're trying to make them key stakeholders. This is going to be very heavy on corporate bullshit, just because like I'm out of San Francisco for a few days, so I get to do it. So being able to kind of engage with your stakeholders gives you this powerful way of kind of just knowing, organizing your thoughts and organizing your comms and kind of being able to think about, okay, this is why and this is what. But there's a broader question, and that is, like, should you be engaging with these people at all? So I'll tell you a little bit of a story that's a little bit kind of showing you how the sausage is made. There is this thing called Amazon Smile. I don't know if you've ever come across Amazon Smile before. And it's basically a way that Amazon lets you kind of promote your charity through Amazon and you get a kickback. So for everything that your supporters buy through Amazon, you get a percentage. And we're subscribed to that. We're part of that program. And we have never sent an email about it. We have never kind of talked about it. It's not something that I promote at all. And that's not me dropping the ball, although some people think it is. I mean, most of the time it is. On this one in particular, it's not. The percentage that Amazon gives you is 0.5%. So that means that for every dollar that a supporter spends, you get half a cent. That is not a great kind of value, right? So I could spend a lot of time emailing out and saying, oh, hey, everybody, if you want to support the foundation, please, please, please go to Amazon Smile and support us and sign up. And we'd probably end up with like, what, $5, $10? The fuck's the point in that? Like, it's all about kind of like thinking about what the return's going to be and not selling yourself too cheap, knowing what like the value is going to be. Because at the end of the day, like ROI is actually important. So for Amazon Smile, it's not something we promote because honestly, I don't want to sell warm, fuzzy feelings that you've done good for us at half a cent on the dollar. Like, that's not beneficial to me. Now, partly that's because right now we're in kind of a fundraising phase. We're trying to get to a point where we've got money in to support all the great things we want to do. So part of it is actually understanding what the value you need is. So for me, it's dollars. For you guys, it might be dollars, it might not be dollars. There's going to come a point for us where we actually want to get reach. We want to reach as many people as we can, and we want them to feel engaged. So we want to make them key stakeholders. Or we want to make them not key stakeholders, but just feel like they are stakeholders. We want to give them warm fuzzies, and 5 cents on the dollar is not actually a bad price for that. And that, at that point, Amazon Smile might make sense. Think of it this way. You've just launched your game. Are you going to go on Steam and slash it to 90% off? Probably not. But 2 years from now, the sequel's coming out. Now it might make sense for you to slash it to 90% off to build that audience because you're about to be able to hit them with, oh, and you can buy the next thing. So it's all about not just understanding like the value proposition, but understanding the utility of the value. And the way that you understand utility of value is up and to the right. Keeping track of your metrics, knowing what's going on, actually having a good sense of like where all your numbers are, what return you're getting from every channel, how much engagement you get with a tweet sent at 6 a.m. versus 9 a.m. versus 9 p.m. All this kind of stuff matters. And it's micromanagey to fuck, but it does matter. Like being able to say, hey, you know what? This channel is actually going to give us quite a lot of return, so we're going to double down on it. We're not seeing a lot in this channel, so let's back off. Or, we're not seeing a lot in this channel, but we're pretty sure there's opportunity, so we're going to double down here. Being able to understand the difference and the texture of these things is really important. So at the end of the day, I kind of boil it down in a lot of ways to metrics, and it's very easy for somebody whose current job is data science to say that. But at the same time, like, it is important. Like, spreadsheet the fuck out of everything. Like, if you can, just put it into Excel, slice and dice it, and eventually it will be useful to you. And all of this kind of is building towards this sense that opportunities don't just happen. Opportunities are engineered. Like, the quote here is that if opportunity doesn't not build a door, well, that's kind of true. But build a bunch of doors and see which one people come through. And if you are in a position where you're doing all this stuff, where you're kind of positioning yourself in a way that people know to come to your door, that's great. So that's the brand and the positioning piece. And then you've got the kind of, okay, well, which doors are people going to come through so I know which one to kind of unlock? And that's the metrics piece. And then it's about kind of this sense that at the end of the day, opportunities are engineered. You can get lucky, and the stupidest person in the fucking world can get lucky. And we've seen it time and time again on the App Store. But at the same time, like, there's a lot of people out there that are hard grafting, engineering these opportunities. So for us, what that looked like was summer of 2014, and Intel deciding that maybe they shouldn't be advertising on Gamasutra anymore. And then the whole tech sector saying, guys, you fucked up. And Intel then did the right thing. They were really stepped up, and they put forward and announced at CES in 2015 a whole industry-wide diversity initiative. And we were really fortunate that they included us in that. So suddenly, we had a significant six-figure grant from Intel. And we were now in a position where we'd been doing the due diligence on positioning ourselves, and it had paid off. So what do you do next? Then you start trying to figure out, okay, fuck, how do we execute on this now that we're kind of bound by contract to execute on this? And we've just gone from being a one-program organization to being a bunch of programs. So, you know, small teams suddenly being under the spotlight and falling apart is arguably another common indie story. So how can you kind of work towards building that up? Well, for us, what we did was we said, okay, well, we need to build this program, and we need to build this program, and we need to broaden support for this program, and you know, we're thinking very intentfully, thinking about where we need to grow, and not just going, oh, fucking hell, we need to just do a bunch of shit, because that's just not going to end up well for us. Molly's smiling because she knows how many times I said stuff like that. So for us, that meant growing our team. That meant finding some key leaders who could actually take this thing to the next level. So I'm going to embarrass them by putting the pictures up. So Molly had come in with us as the Scholars Coordinator in kind of early 2014, so a little bit as we were getting our ducks in a row heading towards this. One of the things that we kind of told Intel we would be able to do was a similar program to the Scholars program that was women-focused, that was all exclusively student women getting to GDC and having fantastic kind of experiences focused on the problems of women in games and kind of celebrating the possibilities of women in games. So we needed a leader for that, and that was Kat Wendt. Kat's been the WIGSIG leader. She is a frequent volunteer for anything IGDA related, and we conned her into taking lead on this, which worked out exceptionally well. And then more recently, and I'll talk a little bit about kind of why we got to a point where we needed to hire staff, but we brought in Jen McLean actually as a paid staff member, just because this thing has grown beyond the point of managing it as a volunteer team. So Jen's our managing director. Today was actually her last day before maternity leave, so she'll be out for a couple of weeks, but she's been doing great for us over the last couple of months. And you know, the point here is kind of intentfully growing your team and finding key leaders to deliver on the promise of what you're trying to achieve. You know, you've positioned yourself in a way that you know what you need to do. Then you find the people who can help you do that, and then get the fuck out of their way. And that's kind of what I try to do. I don't think I'm always successful. So then, like, okay, so now you've got your team, you've got your opportunity, you're trying to capitalize on it. What happens next? Fucking who knows, right? Like, at the end of the day, this whole thing is a shot in the dark. Like, growing a team from like we did, from 0 to 300x is hard as hell. And you're going to end up in a position where you're just doing your best and you think you got it right, but you haven't necessarily, because like these things don't always go well. And it's possible to make no mistakes and still lose. It's all about, really, for me, it's all about this one: growth versus sustain. So we've gone through this period of growth, and that's great. That's put us in a really good position. And it would be really easy to now start growing even further. And I say easy, it's not going to be necessarily strictly easy, but it would be really easy to just go, oh, we've got a load of money, let's just spend. Oh, fuck, we're out of money. That's no good. And it's certainly no good when you're thinking about it in business terms, because now everybody's out of a job and everybody fucking hates you. And that's really not where you want to be as a leader. So always keeping in mind the idea that you need to be sustaining as you're growing, and kind of thinking of it in terms of this cliff face, that the higher you get, the more you need to be building up below you. You need to be kind of putting infrastructure in place. You need to be making sure that the volunteers that you've got, or the employees that you've got, are supported. You know, if somebody's saying, hey, we need an extra blank, then rather than adding a new program, put in the extra QA or product manager or dev pod or whatever it is that they need. You know, find a way to actually make this thing work, because at the end of the day, it's great that you've had success. It's great that you've grown big, but let's grow in a way that means that we're still here next year. Let's grow in a way that means that we're not a one-hit wonder studio. You know, we want to, as leaders, we want to kind of have a situation where product X fails, but product Y is still coming down the pipe, and X hasn't taken down the whole studio. And again, how many times have we seen that story? So this is kind of the message that I want to get across is, you know, growth is great, and growth, you can engineer growth. You can find ways to position yourself, to capitalize on circumstances, to open the door so that opportunity has very little friction to come through. But at the end of the day, sustainability is more important than growth. I can only get away with saying shit like that outside of San Francisco. And that's kind of what I want to talk about. That's the message. So, your charity is a business, or our charity is a business. It's kind of a business. It's a little bit odd to say a charity is a business, but it needs to still be here in a year. It needs to still be here in 5 years, and we can do as much good as we can, but if we're not still here and if we're not thinking long term, then we're screwed. Same thing for a game studio. And we don't exist in a vacuum. You know, everybody is currently headed towards, hey, let's make the next Pokemon Go, for example. Well, make something else, because those guys are already chasing that one. And use every tool at your disposal. You know, actually be involved in kind of utilizing everything. If there's a number, write it down. If there's a graph you can make, draw it. Use everything, because success is never guaranteed, but the trick is that you can stack the odds in your favor. You can do these things that are going to mean that, okay, if I get a bit lucky, it's going to work out. You don't have to suddenly hit the lottery as a jackpot to win. You can kind of get the lower hanging fruit and still be okay. And think long term. You know, what's going to happen when your product ships? What's going to happen when your deal's done and suddenly you don't have a publisher, and where are you going to go next? And the big thing is always be planning. Always, always, always. The number of contingency plans and crazy plans and, hey, I've just hit the lottery plans I have in my head for, you know, what ifs. I mean, it makes me a little bit insane on a regular basis. But at the same time, like, it means that as soon as you see the circumstances, you can go, okay, plan C, let's go. And you know what that looks like. So, I had an ulterior motive in coming here today. And this is kind of putting into practice everything that I've just been telling you about. Because at the end of the day, one of the things that we need to do with the foundation is get on people's radars more. So why not come to a conference a long way from where I hang out and start talking about the things that we do and the way that we do it? Because, like I said, I have a plan. So I want to talk about the ways that you guys can support us. You know, you can fundraise on our behalf by going out and making your games and then putting them up as a charity bundle. You know, Humble Bundle loves to ask the developers, who do you want to sell this bundle on behalf of? Please say us. If you've got any value out of this talk, please say us. Or just send us something on PayPal. You can do that as well. So, you know, being able to reach out, but this is, you know, this is actually a case study in this, because identifying that there's a developer community in Georgia, coming and talking to them and explaining what the foundation is, and then hitting you with the pitch. I had a reason for coming here. I wasn't just like, oh yeah, I want to hang out for the weekend. Here is the reason for this thing. This is leveraging the opportunity. This is creating the thing. This is exactly everything that I've been talking about. So please just go out, spread the word. And at the same time, you can apply for a grant proposal, or you can write a grant proposal to apply for a grant. So we're supporting developer communities, initiatives that promote inclusivity. So anything with a clear aim, and we're really looking for stuff that can leverage local impact to a global scale. Just please hit the website and check that out. IGDAFoundation.org/grants for that. Our GDC scholarships are going to be opening soon. IGDA Scholars, which is for students and recent grads. Women Games Ambassadors for women who are students and recent grads. The Eric Dibson AI Memorial Scholarship for anybody who is currently studying AI. And we're anticipating announcing a few more programs probably in the coming weeks. And you'll be able to find info on all of that at igdafoundation.org/scholarships. So, that's pretty much everything I wanted to tell you about. That is a lot of waffle to get to the pitch. But if you want to talk to me about anything that you've seen today, you can reach me at luke@igdafoundation.org. And please follow us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook, and just check out the website. See all the great things that all our volunteers are doing. We've got a fantastic team now. We've grown from nothing to 300x. Our volunteers now are all around the world, and it's just been phenomenal to be a part of it. So thank you very much for letting me share. Any questions?
I have a question. Okay. Could you sort of elaborate on how you got this Intel donation? I mean, did you have the good website first?
Yeah, so
did you approach them, or did they?
So they came to us. Well, it was kind of a sort of mutual conversation that was going on back channels, I would say. But I think that the key thing for me about that specific thing is, without the good website, without the kind of brand management, without all that stuff, we would have kind of looked like a joke organization, and I certainly wouldn't have cut us a check. So I think that it's a little bit like, I'm not saying that, oh, get a good website and suddenly all the money's going to land on you, but I think without the good website, it doesn't.
But so the brand management came first, then Intel changed their policies or whatever.
So a lot of that is kind of, think of it this way, like, if people are going to look at you and not take you seriously, then you need to rebrand as an urgent thing. So that's kind of why I see it as a big piece of kind of what we did right in 14, because without that, nothing would have come to anything. So kind of, it's a big piece of kind of what I've been describing as like kind of creating the opportunity and leveraging that opportunity.
Okay, so did you allocate funding to do that, or did you get a volunteer to do it?
I think Kat did the logo stuff and I did the web. Okay. And so it was all kind of volunteer.
Okay.
Because, I mean, at that time, we didn't have funds for something like that. Like, you know, we really were on a shoestring.
Okay, so you had nothing.
Yeah.
So then what did Intel expect in return? Did they expect you to, I mean, have their logo on your website, or, I mean, what was their expectation of what
So,
you were going to give them?
so Intel have been really good in that their expectation is primarily outcomes oriented. So they, you know, they want to see good work done in the industry. So the big thing that we do with them is annual reporting. And, you know, here is the impact that your money has had by giving it to us and us kind of running our own programs, but also dispersing it amongst others. But I mean, Intel is just one example of kind of this kind of corporate donor kind of strategy. So they've been very good with us. Others, you know, have maybe different aims or different approaches. But I mean, one thing is that are we still recording? Okay. So I don't want to go too deep into the ins and outs of it in that case. But you know, I would say that Intel's got very kind of altruistic motives, and that's been reflected in what they've expected back. You know, we acknowledge their donation, and we are grateful for it. And I think they want less acknowledgement than we really should. I feel we should be doing, and that's something that I encounter. I've seen it a few times with different organizations that just want to quietly do something good and not necessarily get the public kind of display for. Whilst others kind of, you know, they want their logo up there, they want, you know, to be a sponsor or a donor or affiliated with or however that shakes out. So it kind of, in general, it varies. For Intel, it's been very, very positive. Any other questions?
That was when they pulled their advertising from Gamma Sutra during the Gamergate fiasco.
Yep. Well, it was after that, but that was kind of, it seemed the kind of, if you look at the genesis, like it was kind of the next January that they made their big announcement about this diversity initiative. But that was a big spend across all the tech sector as a whole rather than game specific.
Can you talk about, because it kind of goes back to her point, how we were, like you said 0, but the program's actually been around for 16 years, so we were executing.
I said you've been around for well.
No, I know, but like how, like it's 0 because we were cash poor.
Yeah. I mean, so when I say growth, I'm talking growth in strict revenue, annual revenue terms is where that 300 comes from. And it also includes a lot of Humble Bundle. We got 2 sales with them in 14, so 14 was a big year for us. But I mean, you know, when Molly says that I think Molly's just resentful that I'm using the term 0.
I mean, it's hard, like, if none of us do it.
Yeah, no, I mean, so so before I took over the foundation, I was running the Scholars Program, which is now what Molly does. I was paying to go to the events out of pocket in most cases because the money wasn't there, and somebody had to be on the ground at GDC. So, you know, flights, accommodation, the whole thing was coming out of my pocket to make it happen. Now, you could argue that's an in-kind donation, and it kind of changes the math a little bit, but at the same time, like, we didn't have money for covering volunteer costs. And Molly's program, like she says, has been running for 16 years now. And that's been the case for, so certainly the kind of 5 that I've been involved in it is just no funding for it and kind of trying to make it happen on the shoest of shoestrings. Go on, chip in then.
Not really chipping in. I was just wondering if you would mind talking about going from a shoestring budget to learning how to spend, because suddenly there are all these resources and figuring out, oh gosh, what do I allocate those to? Like what does it need to go to?
So that's a really good question. I feel like it might be a pointed question.
There's been a lot of listening.
What's the question?
So the question for the camera is basically how do you allocate spend? So you go from kind of having absolutely nothing and what are you prepared to pay for out of your pocket, which was, the bare minimum, please, to suddenly having funding and trying to work out what to spend it on. And the honest answer is I'm not sure we're getting it right, so I'm not sure that is necessarily like the right thing. But I think it probably speaks back to the growth versus sustainability thing, in as much as like find the things that are going to enable you to operate. Like assume you're getting nothing ever again. What do you need to make next year look good? So, I mean, this is kind of a little bit how the sausage is made. But this morning we approved a spend on a submissions platform to overhaul our Scholars program. The Women in Get, all our kind of student awards are now going to go through a platform that's web-based, that takes an application form, has a review flow, has actual accounts for reviewers, and then a whole acceptance pipe on that as well. That's been something that we felt we needed for a long time. It's been a pain point for our volunteers. At the same time, like one of the ways that we figured out how to spend on that was doing a vendor evaluation and working out that, okay, if we spent kind of this much and squint at it and throw a few hours, then it's going to beat throwing a lot of hours. Because at the end of the day, there are all singing, all dancing tools that will take care of everything we need for this. We can't guarantee we can pay for them next year. So it's kind of, I think that probably the thing that's important is kind of maintaining that shoestring budget mentality. Spend on what you need to spend on and be a bit freer about that. But at the same time, having come from those roots, you need to remember that tomorrow you could be back there, for whatever reason. For us, we're in a position where we're doing okay, but we are beholden to a few key donors. And if they disappear, then what does our subsequent operating look like? So we're trying to avoid significant overhead, and we're trying to make sure that we can sustain like after the growth, like building up and trying to build that momentum so that it rolls into the next thing. So I think that answers the question. I'm getting a nod, so it's all good.
Outside of the website and logo changes, what other elements went into brand repositioning, and how did you get on to like Intel's radar?
So I mean, for the Intel thing, we were very lucky that we're affiliated with the IGDA. So even though we were an insignificant presence in the industry at the time, like our sister organization was still fairly significant. So that relationship actually developed on the other side of the house, and then it came to us from there. But kind of, I think the thing is less about the website and more about kind of comm strategy. So although I'm kind of harping on about this fucking horrible website, at the same time we had no Twitter feed, we had no Facebook presence, we didn't have flyers to give out to people at GDC to say, hey, this is who we are, this is what we do. So kind of the brand repositioning actually was really more of just an overhaul of our comm strategy, which is kind of partly like you don't want to tell people you exist if you can't help them. I don't want to go around, or I wouldn't have wanted to go around saying, hey, you can apply for a grant if we had no money to actually give you, because that's pointless. So like it's all part of the same kind of momentum building, where having kind of started the process of we did the brand reposition, we're in a position now where we look serious. So then people start taking us serious, so then we're able to start doing serious things like get out, do outreach and say, hey, this is who we are, this is how we can help you, this is how you can help us. But until we've kind of got the story about what we're doing initially, it's really hard to kind of build that up.
I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you set your fundraising goals and timeframes, and how you control different revenue streams to spend
Okay, so
And after that, I'd also love to hear a little bit more about your donor management processes.
oh shit. Okay.
I know that was not a staged question, but just maybe.
Okay, so first question is fundraising strategies, goals, and timeline, and then second piece, which got the comedy response, was donor recognition. So on the fundraising, so we're going through the exercise just now for 17. A lot of what we're doing is kind of, particularly in terms of targets, like we know what our overhead is or what our fixed costs are going to be. We've got a good sense of what, like, if we don't grow programs, if we just execute on what we executed last year, we know what those costs are going to be, or we've a good sense of what they're going to be, and we kind of know where we want to go. So that kind of gets us our fundraising target. In terms of like percentage for channels, what we're actually doing, and this is honestly, if you'd asked me this question like a month ago, I'd been. So this is the value of having a managing director taking control of stuff. So what Jen's been doing is an analysis on other non-profit organizations and kind of what their ratios of like corporate donors to individual donors to a bucket that she's calling ancillary contributions, and Humble Bundle and stuff like that is coming from there. So she's kind of building up that kind of profile of where the money should come from that. And then it becomes just sort of funnel-based stuff, really. Like we need the individual contributions to be higher than they are currently. So we need to start putting the mechanics in place to solicit, to actually do donor recognition a hell of a lot better than we do, and to kind of build that piece up. Our corporate contributions, because the growth came from corporate contributions, they're too high. So now we need to start kind of, again, building up the individual contributions kind of dilutes that sum, but also like we need to be diversifying over there. We need to be kind of making sure that we can sustain if, let's assume that one of the corporate donors drops off. What does that look like? Well, at the moment, that looks kind of like death. So diversification on that helps us. And then kind of building up the ancillary, the Humble Bundle and stuff like that. So that's where the targets come from. And then it's going to be a case of kind of just figuring out how to execute against those. Our donor recognition is something that we have been historically terrible at, to a point where I do not know the names of our donors for the last since we started 8 years ago. Like I don't anywhere have a list of everybody who's contributed in that time, which is pretty fucking appalling, but that's where we are. So at the end of the day, like honestly, that's just a piece that we're doing poorly and we need to get better at. And I don't know what that looks like yet because we haven't sort of sat down and worked it out. It's certainly something that we feel we need to do better. So we're exploring again, and this is kind of like one of the standard responses to this stuff. We're going to benchmark against what other folks are doing, which it's the way things get done, I guess. But I happen to be at I forget which one, some art exhibition-y type job in San Francisco somewhere, and they've got this big plaque out front with a list of all the donors and the different levels that they donated at. And I was like, oh, I'll take a photo of that. That's a good idea. So, this is, that's the level of competency you're dealing with on that piece, I'm afraid. But yeah, I mean, we'll get there. And then I'll be able to tell you all about it next year. Anyone else? Awesome. Thanks for coming out.